Today I'll be reading Daisy and the Trouble with Maggots, Chapter 15 by Kes Gray. Maggots and trouble. And it's Chapter 15 because you already know. So I'll start now. Chapter 15. The trouble with casting fish in rods out is it takes lots of practice. If you don't put your metal bit back before you do it, the fishing line won't come off your reel. Plus, if you let go of the line at the wrong time, you might get into a tangle. I reckon you might even hook yourself up the nose with a maggot. My mum does that.
What? Hook myself in the nose with a maggot?
Uncle Clive said that the best thing you be for him is to cast out for me. He said that the more I watched him do it, the more I would see how to do it. So I let Uncle Clive do my casting out for me. You should have seen how good he was at doing it. He got my float to land in just the right place every single time. Even his first cast went in actually the right place. All I had to do was sit in my special chair and wait for a nibble. The trouble with nibbles is I thought I was going to get one straight away, except I didn't. Uncle Clive said that there is one other important thing you need when you go fishing, and it's called a pentis.
It's called patience.
Patience. Oh. Patience means waiting for a fish to bite your maggot. That's easy. Uncle Clive said that we were in a really good fishing place, but we might have to wait a while for the fish to get hungry. She's getting bored, I guess. Then he threw some extra maggots into the water right next to my float. Extra maggots help to make fish extra hungry. Then Uncle Clive said that he was going to set up his new rod, and once I'd got the hang of this, he would cast out a maggot too. Then we would have to chances of catching a fish instead of one?
A fish instead of one?
A fish instead of one. So it was.
Then we would have 2 chances of catching a fish instead of one.
That's what I said.
There you go.
Uncle Clive's new rod was different to mine. It has an actual fishing reel on its handle with loads of line and everything. That's because Uncle Clive is a fishing expert. He knows how to do fishing reels and everything. What's that mean?
The book's in your face.
And he knows how to do rod rests. Rod steads?
Rod. You've got your hand on the word. Rests. Rod rests.
Rod rests are the rests for your rod. Uncle Clive pushed 2 into the ground right beside my seat and then showed me how to rest my rod on them. Rod. Just waiting. She is so bored. Like I was before this. Then you go, Daisy, he said. You're all set up. Now sit tight and watch your float. And remember, if your float goes under, it means you've got a bite. So I did sit tight. I sat in my special fishing chair with my rod on my rod rests. What's that called?
Yeah, rests.
And I looked at my float and I waited and waited and waited for at least about 3 minutes. The trouble with waiting and waiting for at least about 3 minutes is really makes you want a sausage roll. What says that? So I asked my mum if I could have one, and she said I could, as long as I cleaned my hands first with a wet wipe. So I did, and it was yummy. Not the wet wipe, the sausage roll. The trouble with eating a sausage roll is it makes you want to have a Scotch egg. So I asked my mum if I could have one of those 2, and she said I could. So I did, and it was yummy too, especially the yellow bit in the middle. The trouble with having a Scotch egg is after you've had a sausage roll, it makes you want to have a jam tart. So I asked my mum if I could have one of those 2, and guess what? She said I could. I told you pincers.
Picnics.
Picnics were great fun. Didn't
I.
Except then I got really, really thirsty, so I asked my mum if I could have a glass of cherryade too. What is she thinking? Oh, put one underwater. And she said I could, but I had to come and get it myself, so I didn't. Because I couldn't, because I was fishing. That's the trouble with mums on picnics. Picnics make them even lazier. They're so lazy that they can't even get up off the picnic blanket and walk about. 2 steps across the grass to give you a drink of cherryade, even if you really, really need one. Luckily, Auntie Sue brought me some cherryade instead. Otherwise, I'd probably have died of thirst. The trouble with cherryade is it's really wet, especially if you drop it in your lap. It wasn't my fault. I dropped my cherryade in my lap or over my trainers. It was my Uncle Clive's fault. He was the one who shouted, "Strike Daisy!" He said like this, "Strike Daisy!" Why did he even say that? That is boring to say. Not me. The trouble with someone shouting, "Strike Daisy!" is if you don't know what Strike Daisy means, you don't know what to do. So I just jumped and dropped my cherryade while Mum was wiping the stickiness off my jeans. Uncle Clive told me that while I was looking at my cherryade, my fishing float had gone under, which means I'd had my first nibble. Trouble is, I wasn't looking at my float when it happened. I was looking at my cherryade instead, which is why Uncle Clive shouted, "Strike Daisy!" Means pick up your rod quickly, Daisy, and lift it up into the air, or the fish will get away. Not drop your cherryade in your lap, Daisy, and all down your legs, which is what I did. At first, I was a bit embarrassed, but Uncle Clive said not to worry. He said everyone misses their first bite, and he was sure the fish would come back and nibble my maggot again. And guess what? He was right. That was the end of the chapter. Subscribe here. Bye!